Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to the Wild Vaughn Manor. And, well, today we're wrapping up June on the Range. June is almost done, and so is June on the Range, the magnificent booktube event where we spent the month reading Westerns. It was magnificent, don't you think so, Roger? Roger thought it was magnificent as well. So, this was the second year for June on the Range. And it was a lot of fun, I have to say. I didn't read nearly as much as I wanted to, which is the same thing that happened last year, because this just happens to be a month where I'm really, really busy. June's always busy. And unfortunately, I didn't have as much time to read as I would have liked, but I did get a lot of cool Westerns in. I didn't read anything bad. Everything I read was at least good. And so that's a positive thing. I had a really good June on the Range. I want to thank all of the gang who have been co-hosting June on the Range and all the other booktubers who have been talking about June on the Range and taking part. I really appreciate it, and I hope you all have enjoyed your time reading Westerns. The best book I read for June on the Range was this one. This is Arrow in the Dust by L.L. Foreman. This book was fantastic. I received this book as a gift from Dave and Olive over at Book Blather. Thanks again, Dave and Olive, because this book was dynamite. This book was great. So this was by far the best thing that I read for June on the Range. It was really great. Probably the second best thing, and the thing that I closed out June on the Range with, is this. Rawhide Kid, the essential Rawhide Kid from Marvel Comics. Rawhide Kid, I just did a video on it yesterday. It was, a masterpiece like all of my videos are. Anyway, I talked about this and how much I enjoyed it. The Rawhide Kid, where the Rawhide Kid fights other cowboys and gunfighters and giant totems. You never know what you're going to run across in the West. So this was fun. And yeah, this closed out June on the Range for me. Unfortunately, like I said, there were a lot of books that I didn't get to, that I wanted to get to. And I just received in the mail, actually, a book that I would have just jumped on if it had showed up any earlier, and that was, it was a gift. It's a gift for me from Douglas. Thank you, Douglas. So my good friend Douglas sent me this. This is the Pulp Western Anthology Volume 4, and this is a book full of exactly what it says it is. It's full of pulp Western stories from the old pulps. Like this one, A Killer is Born, which was originally published in New Western Magazine, 1941. That looks great. And so this book is full of stories like that. Yeah, I was like, this is the kind of thing I really love. And so I really want to read this. And I never got to read, for June on the Range, Robert E. Howard's The Last Ride, which I did read once before in my early 20s. But, now that I'm a doddering senior citizen, I'm not going to remember that. That was too long ago. So I wanted to read this one again, but didn't. Which made me think, okay, I can't just be reading Westerns, because I have so many Westerns. When June on the Range came out this year, I did a video where I showed a bunch of Westerns, a whole box of Westerns. And then I found more Westerns, and then I found more Westerns that were kind of hiding away. I've got so many Westerns. And that's not even counting the Westerns I have on Kindle, and I have a lot of Westerns on Kindle too. So I have a lot of Westerns, and I want to read those Westerns. So, and speaking of Kindle, I was going through my Kindle recently, and I found not just Westerns, but a lot of stuff that I had gotten a while ago and forgotten about, and most of that was mystery and crime and that kind of thing. And so I was thinking, I'm going to have to put these things on the rotation. I've got all these other projects going on. I've got the Vintage Science Fiction Project. I've got Star Trek Chronicles. I've got, what else do I have? I've got the Edgar Rice Burroughs Deep Dive. I've got Stephen King, read every book by Stephen King. I've got a lot of stuff, but I'm going to have to I've decided a new category on there in the rotation, which would be Western slash mystery and crime. Because I've noticed that I've got a ton of that, a bunch of mystery and crime fiction that I've always kind of intended to read more of anyway. And so both of these are genres, Western and mystery and crime. These are books, Westerns and mysteries and crime fiction that I want to read more of. And so yeah, I gotta fit those in somewhere. So I'm gonna put Westerns on the rotation along with crime, just so during the year I will get to some before we get to June on the Range, when I can just go, crazy and just read Westerns all month long, just like we did just now. So yeah, that's a plan to fit in more Westerns. Roger and I will cobble together some new, you know, master plan where we fit all this stuff in. Our little brains are always working over here. His are pretty dusty, and they were pulled out of your nose and put into a jar, so his don't work all that well, but we work with what we've got. Anyway, that was June on the Range, and I thought it was fantastic. I had a great time. I really appreciate everybody joining me. And to close out June on the Range, we have a new tag that was invented, and I saw it in a couple places. I saw the original tag by Randy Ray. He's a literate Texan. And I also saw just today, I filmed this yesterday. It's not today anyway. I just saw it on Steve Donoghue's channel. I'm like, I got to do this to close out June on the Range. So this is Another Durn June on the Range tag that I'm just going to throw in this video just for fun to close out June on the Range. Okay, how many prompts are here? They're 10 prompts, but it shouldn't take that long. Prompt number 1, Dead Man. How do you feel about the poetry of William Blake? Love it, hate it, or never read it? I never read it. I'm not as literate as the literate Texan. I just am not that into poetry, to tell you the honest truth. I'm a knucklehead that way. I'm a knucklehead. And I've never read William Blake. I don't think ever, actually. So, I'm an idiot. Number 2, Blazing Saddles. These are all films that, Randy Ray likes. So, Blazing Saddles. What's your relationship with trains and railroads? Have you ever taken a trip by train? And if so, what was it like? What was it like? Well, I've been on the train several times, mostly, but not exclusively, mostly in Europe. I traveled by train from Paris to Italy, Paris, Switzerland to Italy. I've been all over the place on the train. I took the train in Greece, actually, as well. I've taken trains an awful lot, but mostly I've taken trains in Europe. Mostly. I mean, we do in the Bay Area, we have BART trains, but I almost never use the BART train. Almost never. I occasionally, but almost never. Okay, so that was my relationship with trains. Number 3, Hell or High Water. Have you ever been to West Texas? And if so, what did you think of the experience? I just drove through. I didn't really. Only town I actually stopped in Texas at all was Cross Plains. That's pretty much it. Cross Plains I've been to. That's the only, but West Texas, just, that's it. Number 4, The Searchers. Have you ever pursued a goal or an obsession for 5+ years? If so, what was it? And what was the experience like? Did you succeed? It took probably over 5 years of intense searching to find the tomb of Roger Hotep. That took years. Years it took to find the tomb of Roger Hotep. And then, of course, I had to find the forbidden copy of the Necronomicon. I had to bring Roger back to life. And that's why he looks so youthful and fantastic now, because, I just, good as new, right, Roger? Anyway, yeah, that took a long time. And I'm probably doing that now because I'm on the 500 book challenge. The challenge where I have to read 500 books that I own before I will buy any new ones. And that will probably take 5 years. At least it'll take longer than 5 years to read, because I've got thousands of books I haven't read. And there are a bunch of books that I have read that I want to read at least one more time before I die. And so that's all part of this 500 book project where I'm reading these 500 books I already own. And it's going to take, it's kind of, it'll become kind of an obsession that takes over 5 years. Not as dangerous as bringing Roger Hotep back to life, but, you always got to have an obsession in your life, probably. Okay, number 5, Bone Tomahawk. That's a movie I've never seen, Bone Tomahawk. That was 2015, right? It says so here. Yeah, I've never seen Bone Tomahawk. I should probably watch that movie. Anyway, what are your favorite Lost World, Lost Race books, if any? Ooh, I've got one. I've got one right here. That would be She by H. Rider Haggard. She by H. Rider Haggard. This has a fancy picture here. This is She. She Who Must Be Obeyed. This is a great Lost World novel. It's fantastic, mostly because of the character of She. She's dangerous but alluring. It's really good. H. Rider Haggard kind of made a specialty of Lost World novels. He also did King Solomon's Mines and a bunch of other stuff. He did the Alan Quatermain series of books. So, he knew all about Lost Worlds and Lost Races and that kind of thing. But She is my personal favorite of that kind of book, followed hard upon by The Land That Time Forgot by Edgar Rice Burroughs. I like that one an awful lot too. Of course I would. Okay, number 6, Mad Max. I like all those Mad Max movies. I love those movies. I never really thought of them as Westerns, though. So they're kind of inspired by Westerns, I guess. Mad Max, I love those movies. But then my taste in film is the same taste that a typical 13-year-old boy would have. So, but I enjoyed those. Mad Max, what's your relationship like with cars and driving? If you drive, are you an aggressive driver or a defensive driver or somewhere in between? I drive a lot. I drive for work. I drive all the time. And I am not an aggressive driver because I'm smart. And yes, I do a bit of defensive driving. You have to, because people don't drive very well, like anywhere. So, yeah, I drive all the time. And driving is a very dangerous thing to do. People die all the time driving. So, it'd probably be better if I had a job where I didn't drive all the time, but I do. So yeah, I drive all the time. I don't mind driving, actually. I kind of enjoy it. So yeah, that's my relationship with cars and driving. Isn't this exciting, all my thrilling answers? Number 7, Unforgiven. That was a good movie. What's your relationship with money like, especially as it compares to your relationships with people? Well, here's the thing. I'm not totally great with money. It's sort of, I spend all my money on comic books, basically. And before that, I spent all my money on books, you know. And so I pretty much cut my expenses in half because now I don't buy books, I just buy comics. But as far as how I am with money, terrible. That's why the lady of the manor lives in this house, and there's more than one reason. But the lady of the manor lives in this house, and she takes care of. I mean, if she dies before I do, I'm screwed because I don't even know all the bills that we're supposed to pay. To tell you the honest truth, I just I get money and I'm just here. Take the money, and put it in the right places. Because she knows where all the money goes, and the bills that need to be paid and all that stuff. I don't. I'm stupid. I'm stupid when it comes to money. All I know are books and talking about books and reviving mummies from the dead. That's all I know about. Okay, number 8, Django. Django. This is the olden Django book, olden Django movie. Django from 1966. Have you ever been involved in a feud of any kind? If so, what was it like? It would probably be more entertaining if the answer was yes, but I don't really feud. I haven't had any feuds, no. Not that I can think of. I mean, there have been disagreements, things like that, but, no feuds. I don't think so, which is a good thing, Feuds are bad. Feuds are bad. They're not good. Anyway, number 9, the Golden Stallion. Have you ever had a friendship with an animal that was more important to you than most of your relationships with human beings? If so, what was it like? Yes. I don't have children in the house. I just have animals. And animals are my family. My dogs, basically, are my family. And they are as important to me as people. They are little people. They're little furry people. So yeah, my little dogs, and actually the cats too, because we had a cat, this kind of feral cat that we feed, and now just hangs out in the backyard all the time, and that's Lena Luthor, and Lena Luthor was great. And then we got other cats showed up, so now we have 3 cats that hang out in the backyard on the deck and in that vicinity in the back of the manor. So, they're my pals too, the cats. But the dogs, yeah, they're family, so definitely. Number 10, Battle Beyond the Stars. Okay, now we're really stretching it if we're going to consider Battle Beyond the Stars to be Western. But it was, there's Western elements to it, I guess. What was the first science fiction movie you ever saw at the movie theater? Oh, that's a good one. The first science fiction movie I remember seeing at the theater would have to be Star Wars. I saw that when I was 6. Now I remember seeing like fantasy kind, like I saw The Golden Voyage of Sinbad at a drive-in theater before that. I believe it before that? I think it was. It's all, what, I was wee, so it's kind of hard to say. I think Star Wars was the first science fiction movie that I saw in a theater. Of course, it wasn't the first science fiction movie I'd seen. I saw Planet of the Apes, I'm pretty sure, before Star Wars. And, Star Trek, of course. But that wasn't a movie at the time. Anyway, Star Wars, it would have to be Star Wars. And there's no way you're going to see Star Wars and forget it. I think there were a lot of movies that I saw as a little kid that I just, I don't remember. But Star Wars, there's no way you could forget that. When Star Wars came out, there was nothing like Star Wars. And it blew my little 6-year-old mind. I loved it. I loved it. Everybody loved Star Wars who was my age when Star Wars came out. Many of us grew up into bitter adults who hate all the new Star Wars and only like the old Star Wars. I'm not one of those bitter adults. I pretty much like everything Star Wars. Even I even the prequels. I even like the prequels of Star Wars. And I mean nobody else does except me. And now I get that, they're not the best films in the world, but you know what? Anakin's right. Sand sucks. Anyway, that was the tag. That was another Durn June on the Range tag, which we will maybe revive next year when June on the Range returns. So I guess that's all I have to say about June on the Range and the new June on the Range tag. Catch me starting this Sunday. I've got, what do I have this Sunday? I've got the Weekend Reading Report, which I'll be talking about this book a little bit. I'm reading The Last Man. I started this early. This is for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. How come you hate me, Roger? Why are you making me read this book? This book isn't. It's not. It's. I'll talk about this book later. The Last Man by Mary Shelley. It's a thrill a minute, let me tell you. And so that's the Weekend Reading Report. I've got the Robert E. Howard Show coming up on Monday. I've got Epic Comic Book Wednesday. And next week, I've got a video about Garbogust, which is the greatest reading event of all time. I will catch you then.